I see a man in your life.
What, only one?
In the mid-1800s, a series of supernatural and miraculous events spurred the birth of a religious movement in upstate New York. A society of free thinkers and liberals, they coined themselves Spiritualists. Quickly growing in numbers and needing a place to assemble and study, in 1879 they purchased 20 acres of land on Cassadaga Lake for $1,845. Men and women worked side by side, felling trees, clearing brush, and making paths. They had a vision, a utopia, free from judgment, for individuals to discover themselves and join others on the same path of spiritualism. Today, this hamlet is now 160 acres and comprised of 180 homes, a library, a museum, an auditorium, 2 hotels, and even their own post office and fire station. This thriving spiritualist sanctuary is known as Lilydale. They came by any means necessary, by foot, by rail, horse and buggy, some even sailing across oceans. These weary travelers flocking to the city of light. The bereaved, the mourning, the left behind, all making a journey to a place where they found faith and hope. For 143 years, this close-knit community has quietly comforted thousands of grieving souls, while staying rooted in science and dedicated to God. So what lies beyond these gates? I'm going to take you inside on our exclusive journey, discovering historical facts and sharing some truly astonishing phenomena. And the secrets might just be hidden in these eyes. To fully understand the catalyst behind the spiritualist movement, we need to take a step back further in time, to a little cottage in Hydesville, New York. In December of 1847, John Fox and wife Margaret, along with their 2 daughters, Kate, age 9, and Maggie, age 11, moved into this cozy home. Within 2 months, they had reported mysterious knocking sounds as nightly occurrences. Quickly surmising that the raps were coming from an invisible intelligent force, they immediately called over their neighbors to bear witness. Together, they formed a way of communicating with the entity through a series of raps corresponding in numbers to the letters of the alphabet. Through this method, they were able to deduce that they were in fact communicating with a soul who had passed over. Upon further questioning, the spirit had revealed that he was once a pack peddler named Charles Rosna. He explained that he was murdered in the house and that his body was buried in the cellar. That summer, when the soil was dry and upon digging, some human hair and portions of a human skull were recovered. Many years later, adding more evidence to the story, in 1907, the east wall of the cottage caved in and showed that there was a double wall built inside the house. Someone clearly was trying to cover up unspeakable acts. Within this secret tomb was the skeleton of a man and a tin peddler's pack. This substantiated the story that had been told. The rapping phenomena caused a widespread interest, and people from miles around came to hear the rapping sounds. The family at this point was much annoyed by the stir it had created, but could do nothing to prevent it. It became especially difficult to live normally when ministers took a hand and started to persecute them as frauds. The Fox family had decided to send Kate and Maggie to live with their older sister Leah in Rochester to escape the unwanted attention. However, they did not succeed. Both the notoriety and the raps had followed them. The spirit had affectionately attached to their two little girls, Kate and Maggie. This is not a surprising occurrence, because children, having recently stepped over into the earthly plane, often are more sensitive than adults. The entity had chosen the two girls as mediums. Because of their clairvoyant talents, it was surmised that they were the key in what made the manifestations possible. The pair were crucial in the communication with the spirit. On the evening of November 14th, 1848, in Corinthian Hall, Rochester, New York, they gave their first public meeting. The results were not as satisfactory as they wished, but was enough evidence for the audience to conclude that the knocks were caused by some unknown force. The doorway of communication between the two worlds had opened. Records tell us that immediately seances started all over the country, and mediumship began to develop. The birth of modern spiritualism had begun.
The Fox sisters are noted to be the birth or the origins of modern spiritualism because they were the first females that were allowed to go on stage.
Okay.
So the Fox sisters were about the first females that were on stage, and they gave the voice to women. So we look at them with the women's suffrage and women's rights as being able to allow women to start using their voice. So they were exploited by their sister, the oldest sister, and they recanted their story. There's a whole Fox sister scenario. The girls, they both married, and one married a Catholic. I can't recall which one. And when he died, they said she could save her soul, that she should recant. So she did. She said, oh, it was all a fake. It wasn't really real. And then basically people then accused her of faking it and everything else. Yeah. Both of the girls died young of alcoholism, one of alcoholism, one of heart disease. But basically she recanted the story and then went back and said, no, it was really real. So that kind of followed them around. Then after they passed away, they found the peddler's bones.
That was 1907. They died like in 1892.
1892, 93. And they found this. It gave credibility to the story. So the Fox cottage, it was moved to Lilydale in 1915. And then Floyd Cottrell, who was local from the next county over, south of Buffalo, Floyd Cottrell also did mediumship by hearing tappings. So the Fox sisters got their messages from hearing knockings or tappings. And so did Floyd Cottrell. So she came to the Fox cottage and she would give demonstrations. She would also give readings. And as that picture shows, she would also act like a museum talking about the Fox sisters. Yeah. So she was a follower of the Fox sisters. So that was that. And the Fox sisters never came to Lilydale. They were not even known as spiritualists. Floyd Cottrell was a medium, and I assume she was a spiritualist also. And she came here. She wasn't famous. She didn't become famous like some of our other people that have come to Lilydale, but she followed in their footsteps, and that was her association with Lilydale. The Peddler's Pack was found in the Fox cottage in Hydesville, New York. We ended up bringing it here.
In 1907, kids were playing in the basement and the wall broke apart. The skeleton and the peddler's trunk was in that. Now, to go back a few years, it was a very unique way of hiding a body. Instead of just burning the body, this guy built, hauled stones in, built another, like this far, away from the other wall. And he built it up, put dirt in there, built it in there about this high. Then he put the body in there, and then he just kept on building the wall all the way up to the rafters. So you thought that was the outside wall. Like here, that's the double wall there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the. It's up in Hydesville,
Mm-hmm.
and they have this built around it, bulletproof windows, fireproof building, and then they have tours there once in a while.
Yeah.
2 families before the Fox moved in.
Wouldn't stay there because they thought it was.
There was the Bell
Yeah.
family, then there was another family moved in who got spooked within a few days, and they moved out.
Hmm.
And as I tell everybody that comes in here, I dare anybody to crack their toes. Or how many times can you crack your fingers?
And that's what they were
One.
saying, is that they were.
So how can they crack
They were
their toes
cracked.
that many times?
Were the Fox sisters just socially persecuted because they were free-thinking women who dared to speak in public? Now, 130 years later, after their deaths, more and more evidence has come to light. Maybe now they can rest in peace, feeling vindicated.
It's all forgotten now, the trouble and the pain, forgotten every word I said.
A place where mediums met mavens, suffragists shared tea with spirits, and rebels found their spiritual squad goals. Lilydale's guest list read like a who's who of American history's most interesting troublemakers. In an era when women were told to sit down and be quiet, Lilydale basically said, "Hold my seance." This wasn't just a spiritual community, it was a full-on revolution with a side of supernatural sauce. Lilydale offered women something revolutionary, a place where their voices weren't just heard, they were celebrated. Here, women were not only equal, they were leaders. Meet Marion Skidmore, a driving force in Lilydale and a fierce champion of women's suffrage. While other communities were clutching their pearls at the thought of women voting, Marion was out here throwing the 19th century equivalent of a block party for suffrage. And who shows up to these spiritual soirees? None other than Susan B. Anthony herself, the original rebel with a cause. Picture this, 3,000 people packed into an amphitheater, yellow suffrage banners everywhere, and Susan, probably for the first time in her life, actually cutting it loose on the dance floor at the Saturday night balls. That's right, our favorite suffragist knew how to party, spiritualist style. But wait, it gets better. What's truly fascinating is how this sanctuary of free thought attracted not just political revolutionaries, but cultural ones too.
Well, when I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
Enter Mae West, the queen of the double entendre, who definitely came up to see the spirits sometime. While the world knew her as a silver screen sensation who challenged every norm of feminine behavior, few knew of her deep spiritual quest. Here in Lilydale, the woman famous for her quibs about earthly pleasures sought answers about the afterlife. West didn't just attend seances, she developed her own psychic abilities. claiming to communicate with spirits and even believing she was the reincarnation of Catherine the Great. Her favorite medium was Lilydale's Jack Kelly, who apparently kept in touch even after he crossed over. Now that's what I call a dedicated spiritual advisor, working overtime, even from the other side.
Tell me about the history of the temple, and I understand that Mae West has an attachment to this particular building.
This is true. On the outside, you might get that little bio. There's a little frame out there with a bio and a picture of Mae West, as well as the person that built the Healing Temple. His name was Louis Vosburgh, and this was back in 1955. And so he built the Healing Temple in honor of a healer and also a medium. He was a platform medium back in the day. Who he felt very much was, spectacular in his eyes. And so he built the Healing Temple with the intent of having the Healing Temple represent a place where people could come for spiritual healing. And so over the last 66 years, this building's been used for nothing but spiritual healing and spiritual healing topics that's related to that. So it's become a place that's very sacred to very many for all these years, and it remains to be that way. So, yes, Mae West was friends with both of them. So there's a picture of Louis Vosburgh and Jack Kelly, the medium, and Mae West. And so she was very much involved with them. And I'm sure she had come to the Healing Temple because her picture's right in front of it. So I think that's pretty neat for our history.
From suffragettes to silver screen stars, Lilydale offered something rare, a place where radical ideas could flourish, where women could lead, and where the search for spiritual truth went hand in hand with the fight for human rights. The original Cosmic Country Club, your membership benefits included free thought, equal rights, and the occasional chat with your great Aunt Gertrude from the other side. So this is what really blows my mind about this whole story. Susan B. Anthony, this woman who spent her entire life fighting for women's voices to be heard. She was initially skeptical of spiritualism, telling her friend Abby Pentingale, "We love you, but we don't care anything about your religion." But even Susan couldn't resist the pull of Lilydale. And when she finally attended that seance, she brought that same fierce directness that made her a suffrage icon. When a spirit of an unpopular deceased aunt tried to communicate, Susan shot back, "I don't want to hear you. I didn't like you when you lived, and I don't care to talk to you now." I mean, imagine being so authentically yourself that you don't even change your personality for the dead. But here's the most incredible part. After even Susan passed away, her spirit apparently wasn't done fighting. Dr. Shaw, another suffragette, claimed that during a serious illness, she had a vision of Susan standing by her bed and asking in that unmistakable voice, "Are you going to desert us now?" Whether you believe in spirits or not, there's something powerful about a place that gave women like Susan B. Anthony and Mae West the freedom to explore every aspect of themselves, the political, the spiritual, the rebellious. Lilydale just wasn't about talking to the dead. It was about bringing revolutionary ideas to life. In a world that told women to be quiet, Lilydale said, "Speak up, question everything, and never apologize for exactly who you are." Whether you're fighting for the vote, challenging Hollywood's rules, or even telling off difficult relatives from beyond the grave, now that's what I call eternal rebellion. Beyond the seances and the fight for equal rights, this town holds another secret, a form of spirit communication that's so visual, so tangible, it literally hangs in a museum. After the rappings of the Fox sisters opened the floodgates of spirit communication in 1848, the methods evolved. It wasn't just about knocks on a wall anymore. We're talking about automatic writing, slate writing, and something even more astounding, precipitated spirit paintings. What if I told you that some spirits decided talking wasn't enough? They wanted to show off their artistic skills too. Welcome to the world of precipitated spirit paintings. And before you ask, No, it doesn't mean that the spirits got caught in a rainstorm. Precipitated means the portraits literally materialized on blank canvas during seances, created by invisible hands in minutes, not months, minutes. We're talking full-color, photorealistic portraits that would make Renaissance masters weep with envy. And here's the kicker. They were painted by people who were already dead. The spirits, it seemed, were tired of just texting from beyond and decided to start sending selfies. So how exactly does spirit painting work? According to multiple eyewitnesses' accounts from the 1890s through 1920s, the process was both mesmerizing and completely impossible. Picture this. A medium enters a trance state in front of a blank, stretched canvas. Sometimes in broad daylight, sometimes in dimly lit rooms, but always with multiple witnesses present. Shadows begin appearing on the canvas, faint at first, like someone sketching with an invisible charcoal. Then colors start bleeding through, as if the canvas itself is becoming a developing photograph. The idea behind precipitation is that the spirit world can manipulate matter. They can draw on the energy in the room, the energy of the sitters, the medium's own power, and use it to bring an image into physical existence. It's a collaboration between two worlds, basically the ultimate artistic partnership where one half of the team happens to be deceased. But here's what separates this from any known artistic technique. There were no brushes, no palette, no paint pots, and often no physical contact with the canvas at all. The portrait simply appeared. In 15 minutes to 2 hours, spirits were completing artwork that professional artists said should have taken weeks. In a world of deep fakes and digital tricks, there's something profoundly real about this. It's raw, it's mysterious, and hanging up for display all around Lilydale, daring you to explain it away. Meet the queens of spirit art, the Bang sisters, Elizabeth and May. These Chicago-born mediums didn't just talk to dead people. They gave them a creative outlet and apparently ran the afterlife's most exclusive art studio. From their base in Lilydale, they produce hundreds of these mysterious paintings for clients who traveled from all around the world. The sisters claim their spirit guide, Captain W. Stevens, helped coordinate the artistic sessions from beyond. And before you think this was some elaborate Victorian con game, consider this. Chicago police detectives investigated them multiple times for fraud. The conclusion? No evidence of trickery whatsoever. Detective Sergeant George Trafton, described as one of the shrewdest investigators on the force, literally tore their house apart looking for hidden panels, secret paint supplies, or any method of deception. He found nothing. His official report stated there were no signs of trickery in their house or furniture. Working along the Bang sisters were the Campbell brothers, Alan Campbell and Charles Shrouds. These weren't just your typical starving artists eating ramen noodles. They were successful businessmen who claimed their spirit guide, Azor the Helper, directed their supernatural art sessions from his previous life as a Babylonian priest. The Campbell brothers had a different approach. They used what they called cabinets, enclosed spaces where the mediums would sit with a blank canvas. Audiences of up to 300 people would watch as paintings materialized behind a thin curtain, appearing like Polaroid photographs developing in reverse. What made their work especially compelling was the precision. They painted historical figures like Napoleon and Abraham Lincoln with photographic accuracy. This was decades before color photography was widely available. How do you paint a historically accurate portrait of someone you've never seen, using techniques that don't exist? Here's where the story goes from mysterious to mind-bending. In 1941, the Eastman Kodak Company, the people who basically invented modern photography, agreed to scientifically analyze one of these paintings. They brought out every technique available: X-rays, infrared light, ultraviolet examination, chemical analysis. Their conclusion after exhaustive testing, they had absolutely no idea what the paint medium was. It wasn't oil, wasn't watercolor, wasn't pastel, charcoal, or any known artistic substance. Basically, the spirits were using art supplies that don't exist in our reality. The consistency of dust on a butterfly's wings, incredibly delicate, yet these paintings have remained vibrant for over a century. Some of them, when examined during restoration in 2003, were still damp after more than 100 years. Still damp. But here's the part that made me question everything I thought I knew about reality. In 2003, Lilydale historian Ron Nagy had a brilliant idea that would make CSI investigators jealous. He took high-resolution digital photos of the eyes in the paintings and showed them to a professional iridologist, someone who can diagnose health conditions by examining the iris. The iridologist had no idea whose eyes she was analyzing. For the Lincoln painting, she identified mercury poisoning, digestive problems, liver dysfunction, and signs of severe depression and stress. Historical records show Lincoln took mercury-based medications for depression and had to stop because they made him violently ill. He also suffered from what we now recognize as clinical depression. For Mrs. Caldwell's portrait, the analysis revealed thyroid issues, kidney problems, and several other specific medical conditions. There's no way the Campbell brothers could have known these intimate health details about people they'd never met, using diagnostic techniques that wouldn't be invented for another century. The spirits weren't just painting pretty pictures. They were encoding medical information that wouldn't be discovered for decades. But the most mystical thing I experienced in Lilydale wasn't in a reading or a seance. It's right here, in this painting. The media consultant who's been showing me around this amazing town, my guide Joanne Mansfield, bears an unbelievable striking resemblance to this very woman, Mrs. Caldwell, a former member of Lilydale. It's probably just coincidence, but in a place where people believe in reincarnation and souls returning to complete unfinished work, you have to wonder, could Joanne have been drawn back to Lilydale to continue a spiritual mission? Sometimes the most profound mysteries are hiding in plain sight, and sometimes the people we meet aren't meeting us for the first time. Sometimes they're continuing conversations that started lifetimes ago. Of course, not everyone was buying what the spirit artists were selling. Religious leaders called it demonic. Scientists dismissed it as elaborate fraud. Professional magicians offered cash rewards to anyone who could replicate the phenomenon. But here's what's fascinating. Many of the attempts to debunk these paintings actually strengthen the case for their authenticity. When you have multiple police investigations, scientific analysis, and hundreds of witnesses all reaching the same conclusion, that if this was fraud, it was fraud beyond human capability, you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, we're dealing with something genuinely supernatural. The opposition wasn't just about skepticism. It was about fear. Fear of what these paintings represented. If consciousness really survives death, if love really is stronger than the grave, if creativity really transcends physical existence, then everything we think we know about life and death needs to be reconsidered. And honestly, that's terrifying for people who like their reality nice and predictable. This isn't a new concept, by the way. Mediums have been around for millennia, even if they weren't always called that. They were the oracles and seers in ancient Greece, and in Rome, the interpreters of the gods. In the Far East, they were the augurs and the diviners communicating with ancestors. Even the Bible gives a detailed shout-out to a medium in Endor who holds a seance for King Saul. She used clairvoyance, seeing spirits in her mind, to connect him with the prophet Samuel. The desire to connect across the veil is hardwired into human history. What makes Lilydale special is that they turned it into an art form, literally. Standing among those mysterious masterpieces, I was struck by a profound thought. In our age of digital art and artificial intelligence, we think we're witnessing the cutting edge of creativity. But what if the most advanced artists aren't using computers or algorithms? What if they're not even alive? These paintings challenge everything we think we know about art, death, and the nature of reality itself. They suggest that love doesn't end where the heart stops beating, that creativity transcends physical existence, and that the greatest masterpieces might be painted by hands we cannot see. In a world where we can stream movies from space and carry supercomputers in our pockets, the idea of spirits creating art might seem quaint. But maybe the most sophisticated technology isn't silicon and circuits, it's consciousness itself, external and unstoppable, finding ways to reach across the veil and remind us that death is not the end of our story. My journey through Lilydale has taken me from the original spirit wrappings that started it all, through the revolutionary women who found their voices there, to these impossible paintings that hang like windows into another world. What I've discovered is that this little community on Casadega Lake isn't just a spiritual destination. It's a laboratory for exploring the biggest questions humans have ever asked. What happens when we die? Do we continue? Can love transcend death? The Fox sisters said yes with their raps. Susan B. Anthony and the suffragists said yes with their fight for equality that continued beyond the grave. Mae West said yes with her fabulous pursuit of enlightenment. And these spirit artists, they're saying yes with brushstrokes we can't explain, using paint that doesn't exist, creating beauty that defies every law of physics we know. In Lilydale, the spirits aren't just speaking from beyond. They're painting their way back into our world, one mysterious masterpiece at a time. They're showing us that consciousness might be the ultimate technology, that creativity is eternal, and that the most important conversation we'll ever have might be with people who are no longer, technically, people. As my investigation into Lilydale comes to an end, I'm left with more questions than answers. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the real gift of this place isn't certainty, it's possibility. The possibility that death is just a change of address, that love really is forever, and that somewhere beyond the veil, our departed loved ones are still creating, still caring, still finding ways to reach across the infinite to touch our hearts. And honestly, in a world that can often feel cold and disconnected, that possibility feels pretty damn magical.